Seth was a small boy but a big troublemaker. He took no nonsense from anyone who disrespected him or his family members. Seth was a good fighter, though he had never learned anything about martial arts. Well, what would you expect from a troublemaker? Seth grew up in this manner, but things only got worse for him. He's now grown up. He attends Moon Elementary School, and he is now in grade 5. On a fateful afternoon, Seth was just coming back from school when he noticed someone calling him from a distance. Austin was the boss of the school. He and his friends always looked out for kids and collected all the money with them forcefully. Austin called out to Seth from a distance. Austin then asked if he could do him a favor. Austin engaged Seth in discussion. He also told him not to be scared because he attended Moon Elementary, and Austin lured Seth to a building where his friends were gathered. As soon as Austin entered the room with Seth, his friends were full of praise for him. They called Austin the best at luring small children. He has great strategies for luring, and they jokingly told him to venture into kidnapping. Seth did not understand what they were saying. Austin then asked Seth if he was going to help them, and when Seth asked him what he wanted, Austin replied, "It's not hard, just give us all the money you have." Seth was surprised at what Austin and his friends were asking. Seth asked Austin if they were so poor that they had to take money from kids. Seth angrily called Austin and his friends trash. Austin was enraged by what Seth said, so he attacked Seth with full force. His friends were cheering him up, but to their surprise, Seth blocked Austin's pouch and gave him a Shaolin knee kick on his jaw. Austin misplaced his steps but quickly regained them. Austin then attacked the young Seth again, but this time it was successful as a heavy punch landed on Seth's face. "Austin, Austin, Austin." His friends kept calling his name, but Austin was now lying on the floor unconsciously with his head bleeding from blood. A 5th grade student just put the supposed school boss in a temporary coma. Can Seth ever lose a fight? Later that day, Seth was taken to the police station. The officers were surprised Seth actually did this alone. As they were questioning him, his mother came inside, trembling. She pleaded that they release Seth. After a while, Seth was freed, and he left the police station with his mother. In the next scene, we saw Seth and his mother together. She was asking him if he got injured in the fight with Austin, but Seth said no. She then told him to promise her not to get into any fights again with anyone, and Seth had no choice but to agree, as he never wanted to see the sadness in his mother's face again. She thanked him for promising him, but at that time, Seth wasn't sure what caused his mother's sad expression. Time has now passed. Seth is now in middle school. "Seth, you idiot, you think you're funny," someone screamed aloud behind him while kicking him to the ground. Seth was constantly kicked on the ground, and the boy kicking him was saying, "If I ask you to do something, then do it." Seth never really attempted to fight back, and after the guy stopped hitting him, Seth was angry and crunched his head, saying, "You did well, Seth. You did well." Seth went to his mom's restaurant, pretending he was awk. All he wanted was to always see his mommy smile, no matter what happened. But then her happiness wasn't going to last for the day, as some men parked in front of her restaurant. As one of the men approached her while holding a frame in his hand, he told her he had passed away. Seth's mother immediately became sad, but Seth did not understand what they were saying. He continued to ask his mother what happened. In the next case, we can see that Seth was transferred to another school called Yamjin High School in the neighborhood he grew up in, and the teacher was introducing Seth to his new classmates. Many of the guys in the class were not interested since he was not a girl, but it seemed he was quite popular among the girls because they knew him well. And Seth was given a seat at the back very close to Victor. Victor was a gentle guy but mostly feared by everyone in the class. After the class, Nathan and some of the male students went straight to Seth's desk to tease him. They claimed they missed him and promised they would have a great year together. Seth did not buy into their jokes, so he asked them what was funny to them and what made them laugh. They felt ashamed at Seth's comment, so Nathan asked Seth if he had forgotten who they were. Seth replied, he can still remember them. How could he ever forget them? At that point, the boys were already getting angry at Seth, but Victor, who was asleep at the time, got disturbed by their argument, so he told them all to be quiet. And that was how the heated discussion stopped. The boys promised to get back at Seth as they now have unfinished business to settle. Later that day, Seth attended his first class since returning. Seth was also happy to be back as he loved the weather. Seth King. Someone called out to him with the assurance that she knew him. Seth was shocked. He can't remember knowing the person who called, but anyway, he turned to respond to the girl, who happens to be their class rep. After the day's class, Nathan and the boys who promised to get back at Seth to settle scores charged towards his seat, but they were blocked by their class rep, the girl that was sure she knew Seth. They asked her to leave the way else she will get beaten up, but she refused. She told them she would not allow anyone to cause trouble in her class. But to her surprise, Seth tapped her from the back and told her he appreciated her concern, but nothing was going to happen. He told her they have all been friends from middle school and they only just missed him as much as he has. He was not going to hold back again as he used to because of his mummy. At this point, even the boys that wanted to fight him knew something was different about Seth. They were shocked, as that was not what they were expecting from him. The boys got into a fight with Seth, but he finished them all in no time. The boss of the school, he's a very huge and tall guy, heard about this. He called Nathan and told him how disappointed he was about the information about him and the other guy being beaten up by a mere weakling. He opened the door and asked them, among them the new student, to give him a proper welcome. The class rep was surprised at the presence of the school boss, but she could not do anything. After a while, Seth was pointed out to him. Seth was sleeping with his head carefully placed on the table, and the boss approached him. "Get up, you bastard. I heard you beat up my sources of income," the boss said arrogantly. Seth was still not himself as he was still feeling sleepy, but the boss would not consider that and went ahead to introduce himself to Seth in a more scary way. "They call me the Goblin of Junction Middle School." He shouted loudly, "You must have heard of me, right?" The boss noticed Seth looks familiar. He asked if they have ever met, but Seth was sure they hadn't, until he remembered the ones who had a fight with the boss when they were both young, and he broke the boss's nose after he tried to avenge his brother being beaten up by Seth. The boss was surprised. It was Seth he came to challenge, and while also remembering the incident back when they were small, the boss just took a turn and walked out while promising Seth he will be back again for him. Nathan tried to stop the boss from leaving, asking him why he didn't do anything to Seth, but the boss commanded that Nathan move away from the road. Nathan is shocked at the quick change of mind of the boss. Seth was happy to return to his neighborhood after a long time away and to see many familiar faces again. Seth went to visit his mommy at work, and she asked if he was fine and also if he had forgotten their agreement or promise not to fight. Seth said boldly that he had not forgotten, but whispered to himself, "If they don't hit me first." He told his mother he was leaving because he had classes to attend. After Seth has left his mother, the next scene shows Seth talking with his driver. He has told him not to prostrate or call him boss whenever he comes to pick him up, and his driver apologizes. When Seth and Victor arrived at school, they had already placed their heads on the table and fallen asleep. A huge man entered the class. The whole class greeted him, but he went straight to Victor and Seth's seat. He pinched them to wake them up. He then grabbed their ears. He told Victor he only left him the last time because he had a fight coming up. He then faced Seth and asked him who he was because he had never seen him before. The class rep responded to the huge man that Seth was a transfer student. It happened the man was a teacher who was angry the two of them were sleeping in his class, and he threw them out to work on the field. The teacher asked them to run 3 laps. He told them the first to pass the finish line wouldn't be punished for their behavior, but the loser is going to regret ever being born. Seth and Victor then begin to run. Seth says to Victor that it will be embarrassing for him to lose to him. Victor is shocked at Seth's comment, so he increases his speed. Seth is surprised at how fast Victor became after he heard what he said, so Seth decides to use his whole body as he must not lose. The two of them dash forward towards the finish line with top speed. Even their teacher is surprised as they dash past him. The margin is too small to determine the winner. He was happy at the level of competition between the two of them, which makes him conclude he needs to find out more about Seth since he knows about Victor already. He also promised himself to get Seth running. Thank you for joining me on this series of recaps. Please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to get an up-to-date anime recap of your favorite anime and manhwa movies.